I've been thinking a lot about this painting from 1902 by Henry Ossawa Tanner, an American painter who lived from 1859 to 1937, and who studied at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts under Thomas Eakins. In fact, he became one of Eakins' star students. This painting is called The Good Shepherd, and I think it's a marvelous example of brush work, of brush stroke. I think it was Robert Ryman who said, I read this years ago, that the ideas in my paintings are located in the tip of the brush. I think that's Robert Ryman. If I'm wrong, somebody please write me and let me know. I love the notion that the brush can be the vehicle, can be the receptacle, and carry the content, the weight of the content of the painting. The brush itself, I love the idea that it's suspended in the tip of the brush. So I'm very much invested in ways of putting down paint, ways of exploring and expanding my brush work, my brush marks. And you can see in this Tanner painting, it's masterfully orchestrated through darks and lights and through composition, yes. But the mood, I think the weight, the gravity, the pathos, I think is all suspended in the brushwork, in the kind of scratchy, slightly doubtful, uncertain brushwork. And I love uncertainty in a painting. It creates a sense of mood and atmosphere and placement and time, and also the fugitive aspects of time, something fleeting and something nocturnal. All beautiful things to me. Henry Ossawa Tanner. Back in the mid-'80s, when I was at the College of Charleston, I would enter group shows all around the city, one of which was at the Dock Street Theater, which housed the City Gallery back then. And I had an old car, but it was not very big. And these were huge, lumbering, multi-paneled paintings that I made. And the art studio was a pretty long distance from the gallery site. So I would lug every single piece of every painting by hand all the way across town in any kind of weather to the show site, as long as it took. And that practice extended into my early years here in New York City. I had very little money, I had no car. If I was in a group show on the east side, I would lug every single painting from the west side. If the show was in Chinatown, I would lug every single piece on the subway or by foot in any kind of weather, any time of day, whatever it took to get the work there to the site. And I loved the kind of, to me there was kind of a homemade kind of pure feeling to that I was the author of the work and I was the source of its delivery. Me sweating, bringing the work, putting it there, and then and getting it ready for a show. And I remember getting to the Dock Street Theater with my paintings. I threw everything down and stacked things and just tossed everything around in the space. And one of my co-exhibitors was next to me unloading his paintings, and he had white gloves on and practically a beekeeper outfit handling his paintings. And he looked over and remarked to me, you treat your paintings like old shoes. And, kind of a jerky thing to say. And I was an arrogant college student, and two words came to mind, but I'm also a Southerner. I didn't say that. I think I said good luck, which is for me a substitute for those other two words. Good luck. And I said that and then went about my business. And I realized very shortly after that, upon retrospect, that he was exactly right. They are like old shoes. Here is an old shoe, in fact. I severely wear down the equipment in my life, and that's just the way that I've always been. And that extends into my materials. The first thing I do when I get a new brush, which is not often, it's once every 2 years, the first thing I do is snap it in half. I break it for a couple of reasons. One reason I like to be literally closer to the surface of the painting. The other reason is an act of disrespect, and I have an enormous amount of disrespect for my materials, for brushes, for canvas, for paint. But I have an enormous respect and reverence for what they do, for the language that they speak. The reason I snap the brushes is to show disrespect, which for me promulgates a sense of freedom and permission to mess up and to make mistakes. These are not amulets. These are not precision tools. These are tools to make mistakes, to make marks, to investigate, to cover up, and to reveal again. I've never been intimidated or stuck with a white canvas. I love a blank canvas because it's total freedom and permission to me to mess up, to say good luck to the materials, and to put every ounce of myself into that process of making mistakes. I think it was William V. Dunning, whose work I read a lot, who said that a painting is not solving problems, painting is creating problems. That's very much woven into my practice, and both emotionally and physically, is the idea of making mistakes, making problems. That idea of relinquishing a certain amount of control, to me, suggests doubt, uncertainty, all very attractive things to me in a painting, the notion of doubt. That also extends to the way I hold brushes. I played drums for over 20 years. This is called matched grip when you're playing drums. I'll hold the brush in this fashion as well, with both hands sometimes. Also, what's called traditional grip in drumming is to hold it like this, and I'll hold the brush in that fashion sometimes for making marks. I'll also hold the brush with a fist and come down at a kind of a 45-degree angle against the surface. It gives a wonderfully kind of raw, denuded brush mark, very itchy, very primitive looking, and I love that kind of pushing down to get those marks. And then if I want a very sinewy, very kind of almost classical arabesque, I'll use a very thin sable brush, and I'll hold it at the end, and I'll do a pulling up and a twisting, a twirling and a pulling up at the same time, which gives you a beautiful tubular kind of clean line, which is also very useful in some of the passages in my paintings. Often when I'm lecturing at colleges or universities, sometimes people will ask the question, how do I clean brushes? The answer is I don't at all. When I say that, I can see sometimes the faculty in the back of the room just cringing. It's just what works best for me. It's the way I've done it for over 30 years. I don't clean brushes. I have all my brushes, hundreds of them, some since I was 11 or 12 years old, in big buckets full of green palm olive and water, soapy water. They stay submerged in that liquid overnight. It keeps them soft and sealed. They come out of the liquid, are dabbed off on a t-shirt, put into clean terps or Gamsol, and then they're ready to go to work. And the reverse of that process when I leave at night. I think part of it for me is I spend the minimum amount of time with the cleaning, with the studio arranging and cleaning and tools, and the maximum amount of time painting. And also as another way of exploring that notion of disrespect to my materials. In fact, there was even a period of about 10 years where I would turn the brush on its ass end and then literally stab holes in the canvas as a way of demarcating space, as a way of drawing and creating line. It was an homage to Lucio Fontana, and also again a way of sort of violating, penetrating, and disrespecting the material. So Mystery Man from years ago, you were right. I do treat my materials and my paintings like old shoes, but I happen to like old shoes. This is a painting in progress which employs a fairly broad range of brushed marks. That high-key blue on the left, then next to that a kind of a purpley plum shape put down with probably a box top or something flat. Then a horizontal blue fat brush stroke which traverses the cadmium red, brings you into that middle section of the painting. Just above that, a few of those delicate arabesques, those little tracers put down with that pulling rolling technique I talked about earlier. Then immediately into that 45-degree angle scrubbing I talked about, that scrubbing of a brush, that denuded raw brush mark, very much inspired by Matisse, the way he would do those washy applications of paint. Quickly shifting gears as the purple gets deeper into a fatter brush, probably a 3 or 4 inch brush there, and then finally ending up on the right side of the painting with a much more muscular, much thicker application of paint, again with a big fat brush. So a fairly broad range of moods and inflections, from something diminutive to something much more close, from something vague to something more resolute. Even masculine, feminine, you can try to suggest, just given the character of the brush marks, all on the tip of the brush. If we're talking brushwork, we should look at John Twachtman. This painting from 1882, and Twachtman trained in the Munich school, which stressed a very shadowy, brushy application of paint. If we jump forward to 1900, you can see how the primacy of touch suddenly comes to the fore. The subject, or so-called subject, the image, tends to disappear in favor of delicate little skins and shifts of pigment, all suspended in the tip of the brush. This is a master painter, not describing with paint, but being with paint.